Today, local historical societies are ubiquitous, and yet their presence is often taken for granted and rarely the history of their foundation considered. Who created these institutions and why? How did they develop into their current museum form? And most interestingly, what is their purpose in today's society? Some of these questions can begin to be answered right here in Northeast Ohio at three storied institutions: the Mohican Historical Society, the Wayne County Historical Society, and the Strongsville Historical Society. In interviews with some of the many passionate members from these organizations, light is shed on the significance of local history museums, and concerns about their upkeep are raised, further complicating the question of what the future holds for local historical societies in the 21st century. Most generally speaking, local historical societies are best defined by the term local. They are run by local community members, they primarily attract local audiences, and they exclusively collect items relevant to local history. Some of the earliest historical societies in the United States date back to the 18th century. These early institutions represented all state history, and the elite white males who ran them primarily collected artifacts of natural history. By the 20th century, more local historical societies began to populate the American landscape. As rapid urbanization quickly changed the makeup of small towns, community members felt the urge to preserve the history of the early settlers of their communities. In Northeast Ohio in particular, sesquicentennials, grand celebrations for the 150th anniversaries of town foundings, in the 1950s and 1960s, piqued community members' interest in their town's history. This newfound interest prompted some historically minded residents to form the local historical societies that now reside in most Northeast Ohio towns. Today, these local historical societies remain as a testament to their town's unique past, even as they face increasing difficulty in recruiting volunteers, funding events, and attracting the interest of a younger generation to carry on the responsibility of preserving the town's past well into the future. In May 1961, a group of enthusiastic citizens gathered to form the Mohican Historical Society, a community organization designed to preserve the history of Loudonville and Perrysville, Ohio. The group immediately got to work and restored a log cabin in Central Park for the town's 1964 sesquicentennial. In 1974, the group achieved their long-held dream when they completed the Cleo Red Fisher Museum, a two-story museum in the heart of Loudonville. Today, the Mohican Historical Society continues to operate the Cleo Red Fisher Museum and the historic log cabin.
So my title is curator, but it's essentially director plus curator plus archivist plus tour guide, everything.
I've lived in Loudonville since 1939 and didn't know too much about the Historical Society until about 25 years ago.
Historical societies are important because essentially they save and tell those stories from the past, which if they don't do it, nobody else will. The larger state and federal museums just don't have that sort of capability to go out to every small community and preserve those things. A lot of people, especially smaller towns, think that nothing exciting ever happened there, so there's nothing worth sharing and nothing worth saving. Once I started working here, we quickly realized how even a small town like Loudonville can change and affect the entire world.
So many of the museums that we've visited, the small ones around here, are not fortunate to have full-time curators. And if they could, it makes such a difference because our curator has turned ours around in the 8-9 years that he's been here.
In terms of the museum, I think the greatest achievement is probably just how many people come in on a regular basis now. Just getting people engaged and active and interested is one of the hardest things that you can do.
It's very, very rewarding at the end of a good tour that the people thank you for all the stuff they learned. And 10, 15 years ago, I never thought I would be doing something like that. So it's enriched my life, and I hope I've enriched other people's lives through that too.
One of the hardest things we deal with right now is just being open enough. I'm the only paid staff, so I rely on a few other volunteers, but we don't have enough active that we can just go ahead and schedule constant open hours.
We need more volunteers, and I try to impress on people how worthwhile it is to do something that enriches your life.
In 1904, the city of Worcester established its own museum in the town library. However, by the 1950s, the museum was at risk of being removed. Concerned citizens rallied together to form the Wayne County Historical Society in 1954, and they helped move the former Worcester Museum into its new location, the Bell Stibbs House. Today, the Wayne County Historical Society resides in Worcester, Ohio, and owns 9 buildings full of artifacts related to the county's history.
When I was president of the society, I probably averaged 20 or 25 hours a week, either working at home or working here on a variety of things. So as I tell people, when you're president, since it's all volunteer, you're the president, you're the executive director, and you're chief bottle washer.
Oftentimes, I'm asked to portray Rebecca Bell, who was the first owner of the Bell House. And I usually wear this costume for school tours.
Wayne County Historical Society is an all-volunteer organization. And so, you know, if you're a volunteer, you're coming and doing what you want to do. You're kind of picking and choosing what topics you end up working on, which is fun.
Well, I think what I enjoy most is working with the children. They're so enthusiastic. They love it.
One of the more fun activities to me about volunteering at the society, and this would be as a volunteer or as a board member or as president, is learning from others. It's like every time, especially when I'd be a docent, you'd always learn things from other people, and that makes it fun.
It's always a challenge to keep going and to present the programs we would love to present when you don't have the money for it.
Raising money for a project can be very successful. You know, you tell people, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to build this, we're going to have a new firehouse. People can see what it's being given for, and they're much more willing to give money. The real challenge is raising money for operations.
People in our community certainly need to find us. They're always amazed when they come here, and I don't know where they've been. I think we need to expand on the internet, and our webpage needs to be updated constantly so that people who are traveling can find us. Just want to encourage everybody out there in the county and beyond, come and see us. I think you will be surprised, and I hope you'll be pleased.
Howard and Velda Chapman were longtime residents of Strongsville, Ohio, with a love for all things historical. Therefore, in 1962, they gathered a group of Strongsville residents in their home to discuss the possibility of forming a town historical society. The Chapmans generously donated their home, barn, and surrounding property in the center of Strongsville as the location for the Young Historical Society. The early members gradually began to expand their organization and played an important role in the town's 1966 sesquicentennial. A decade later, as part of the nation's bicentennial, the group reconstructed an old log cabin on the Chapman property and thus began the expansion of the Strongsville Historical Society Village. Today, the village has 8 buildings relocated and restored from various parts of Strongsville, and the Historical Society continues to operate the village as a local museum full of Strongsville artifacts.
A friend that I went to church with across the street invited me to come over and just see what was going on. And I had been doing some gardening at the church, and why don't you do some of the gardening here? Okay, so we did, and we got to meet some people and just got in deeper and deeper and deeper. Once you got to meet the people that were here, everybody very friendly, very accepting of other people coming in, and learning what the mission was here then. And the value of what our city had that I really wasn't aware of. And that was back in about 2001. Our community is very important. We're getting more and more people to be aware that we're here, which means we get more help. Volunteers are the backbone of this group. People drive by us daily, and they have no idea we're even here. We have people come in and they'll say, I've lived here 40 some years and I didn't know this was here. It's like, okay, that's one of the things we need to do better. Got to get people in so that they learn to love you. Then maybe they'll donate a major donation or come back and help. Time is a major donation too. It's not always monetary. Our society, I would hope, would gain members. I have a vision that it continues, that it doesn't fall apart. And that's going to be a tough one just to hang on to, I think, right there. As with all these buildings and all the items of the collection, even if you get them all in place, you still have to have someone to clean and maintain and carry out either the same activities we do or some new ones that will draw people in. And we're just not seeing the influx of younger people. They love it, the desire, but they don't have the time. So there's a concern there, there really is. Nobody is here on a regular schedule. We don't have hours. So we're not, 8 to 5, come up and help us any day you want. You have to call, make arrangements, as you know, we set appointments, and we're glad to work around people's schedules, but we don't live here.
While the answer of the purpose of local historical societies remains unique to each institution, one fact applies to all of these organizations. They cannot continue without the work of dedicated volunteers. Not only is it easy to arrange time to volunteer at your local historical society, but it can also be an amazing opportunity to explore an interest and become involved in your local community. Volunteering is the answer to how local historical societies will continue to flourish, and the question that remains is who will answer the call to fill this need. As the members of the Strongsville Historical Society say, the future of the past is in your hands.